Well, good morning to another episode of Crypto Posse. Actually, episode 17 to be exact. And you know what we're going to do today? We're going to say hello to the posse itself.
What's
Hey,
good,
how's it
guys?
going?
Good to hear from you guys. Glad you're showing up. And you know what we're going to do it again this week is jump straight in because why wouldn't we? What I know is that Mike has a pretty cool topic he wants to start off with. So why don't we go into that?
Everybody's aware to the fact that there's a crisis going on with Iran and Israel, and on Sunday, in the early hours, we jumped into the war and dropped some heavy artillery on their nuclear bases and trying to knock out their nuclear capability, and it caused a pretty big sell-off in the crypto market. We saw Bitcoin drop all the way to 98.3, on the news, and some capitulation selling. Retail investors were bailing out, and it was a pretty major event.
As it would be. I mean, anytime an event like that happens, which isn't every day, obviously that's not every day that, stuff like that's going on. You would only assume that it would have some sort of effect on the market. So love to hear more about that.
Like I said, Bitcoin dropped to about 98.3, and then, it it recovered to about 103, and we saw it kind of staying in that trading range, and then the following day, we saw some retaliation from Iran, and they shot some little pea shooter missiles at us. Compared to our heavy artillery, it was like shooting skyrockets. And we swatted them down like flies. But you know, it was interesting to see that, after that light retaliation, Bitcoin, saw a fairly parabolic rise to about the, 105, 106 level. And that's kind of the range that we're trading in right now. And you saw your altcoins follow some. You had a lot of the meme coins that have been pretty beat up. We're up like 20, 30%. So it was a kind of a wide range of price action on all these different altcoins. So it was interesting to see which coins recovered, and their percentage gains. So it's good to try to make note of that when you see these coins sell off and then they recover, to make note of the ones that rebound the best, to try to make note for next time.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, he's spot on. I unfortunately thought we were going to go a little bit lower, and the market kind of got away from me. And he's right. So I do take note of sectors, whether it's meme coin, AI agents, specific coins that I see that rebound the best. And I think this week actually Say did the best, which is SEI, and it's always comparable to SUI to me. And that coin hasn't done anything in a long time. And that was pretty much the best altcoin for the last couple of days.
Yeah, like you said, Mike, beautiful price action. My thoughts and prayers go out to all parties involved in this situation, but how it correlates to crypto, like you're talking about, Mike, so many people that are around me, I've heard say the same thing you guys just said. And I'm taking notes right now because this is a golden nugget. Has anybody made this correlation? So you've got the market and you've got the news. Every time the news comes out, what does the market do? It reacts. And then when I see people or hear about people thinking the same thing, when I do my analysis on the market, I realize that when it dropped down to the 98 range, like Mike's just shared, think about all those retail investors that sold off thinking that it was going to go lower. And then here comes Monday. I'm reading how people thought the market was going to go lower, and it did exactly what you just said, Jeff. Market buyers showed up. Market starts to go in the opposite direction. And here's the thing, though. We're not out of the woods yet. right? There's some very important key levels that Bitcoin needs to close above, like the current level about 105K, before we can entertain higher prices, before we can entertain going back to all-time high. But until then, I'd be jotting that down. Market news reaction. And then what are you going to do?
And then the all-time high, was it somewhere around 112?
Yes.
And we sit today where?
Currently we're at about 106K,
Okay.
and
So it hit
that's
98 and now it's back to 106, which is halfway to 112. So we're kind of mid-range, and it would just depend on current events or, upcoming events to a theater near you, that's going to be what it's going to be. But obviously we don't have any, we don't claim to have any crystal ball. We never do. We're not stupid like that. But if we were to assume that this strife, as let's just call it, in Iran, Israel, America, this whole thing that's going on, we would assume it's going to take the market for a ride. It's going to be a roller coaster. Is that fair to say?
And I think the number of longs that were liquidated were a lot more than the shorts at 98. I want to say 50 million, if that's correct, on the shorts from 98 till present. But when we were at 106 and dropped, there was hundreds of millions in liquidations on long positions.
Yeah, volatility. Volatility is your best friend. I hear a lot of people say, stay away from it, but if we didn't have volatility, we wouldn't have these big, huge swings in the market, which to me, at the end of the day, it's opportunity. And whether you take advantage of the opportunity or not, that's to each their own,
Yeah, that's a personal decision.
right? But you already know what we're all doing here on Crypto Posse. When there's a dip, I'm not saying throw the whole kitchen sink at it, right? But if you got a couple $100 on the sideline, you got 1,000 on the sideline, I would start to deploy that.
And when you see a dip, obviously 98 represented a pretty substantial dip from the high at 112.
And that's where I can understand why retail investors, which I'm still retail, right? I'm not a big whale, but I understand the psychology, which is not talked about enough, behind what's going on. And that's how all this is relating to the market.
The tough thing to try to understand is when you get to 98, like Will is saying, if you got capital on the side, you want to inject some capital in there, thinking, okay, well, if it goes to the upside, I'm covered. If it goes further down, then you can cost average in and then, cover some of your gap and your loss there and be in the game because eventually it's going to come back up. So, I mean that's the problem. The problem is when the news is out, you have, they're saying that we're going into World War III. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. And, 12 hours later, you have a supposed ceasefire, and then the market skyrockets and basically goes on a little parabolic run from 103 straight to 106 in about 15 minutes, so it's crazy the swings we get in crypto and you have to try to take advantage of these dips. I mean, if you would have taken advantage of any of these last dips we've had over the last, say 6 months, you came out on the winning end of it.
These dips are pretty substantial, down to 98 up to 112. I'm pretty sure there's money to be made there if you have the right timing, which is a big if, because, we talk about this in hindsight. It's easy to sit back in hindsight and say we could have, would have, should have, but it's harder in the moment to know, oh, there was going to be a ceasefire, and what's that emotional response going to be on the market, or what's going to happen as a result of all the variables to do. It always has some sort of complexity, but hopefully we can learn. That's what I always say. It's easy to say this, but you learn and try to read patterns and predict patterns. But even that seems like human beings, no matter what, the collective humanity is somewhat unpredictable.
And because of that statement, and because we don't have a crystal ball, that's why I would follow what Mike just said. I would deploy little bits at a time. If I find myself in what we call a drawdown, which is the price is lower than my first buy-in or my entry, that's when I'll lower that cost average, like Mike just said, down and take advantage. Because let's rewind, right, to the genesis of Bitcoin that came out and was way before 2008 that it was being worked on. But at the end of the day, think about since 2008, all the stuff that's happened in between then and now, and look at Bitcoin's price back then and look at Bitcoin's price today. That's why I buy Bitcoin every time there's a dip. And I'm only looking for these big 30% dips if I'm going to buy Bitcoin because of how high it is. I think the real solid gains right now are in what Jeff's going to talk about, which is altcoins. That's where the money's about to be made.
We know, and that's a perfect segue, Will. Thank you for that. That's a lead in for a switch from Mike's topic, which was awesome. Thank you, Mike. Super stoked on what you brought. And now we would switch over to Jeff with your topic of crypto and real world assets. Take the floor, mister. Take the floor.
So real world assets are exactly what they sound like. Stuff like real estate, gold, treasury bonds, now being turned into tokens on the blockchain. It's connecting the world of crypto with real value. So people now can invest in tokenized versions of actual things like government bonds and even earn a real yield. And there's big players already in it. So BlackRock, the biggest, launched a tokenized treasury fund on Ethereum. Ondo Finance is offering access to US bonds through crypto as well. In Maker, the team behind DAI, which is a stable coin, is using real world assets to back their system as well.
I just wanted to kind of simplify it for everyone because it can sound a little complex. But what Jeff is really saying is that while all this stuff is happening on the front end, the back end is being built out at the same exact time, which means that there will be a future very, very soon that you will be able to buy real estate with crypto. There's websites out there already today that when they're putting up the value of real estate, they're saying, and Coinbase did a badass commercial too. We'll have to share that, which is instead of like when you're looking at real estate, you could say, oh man, the value of this house is worth, say, 500 grand. Well, now what they're doing is they're saying, well, you could buy this house for 5 Bitcoin.
That's incredible. Don't they already do that in El Salvador
They do. Yeah, they do.
and other parts of the world? But you're saying that's going to be something we can do in America here at any point?
Yeah, that's what Jeff is touching on right now is the fact that, and for somebody like me as an investor, it's going to allow me to transition from the stock market to crypto all in one platform. I believe Jeff had shared with me that Robinhood already does it or about to do it where you might be able to buy stock, sell it, and then take your profits and go into crypto. But what they're going to do with RWA's real world assets is you're going to be able to sell your Tesla stock or whatever stock straight into Bitcoin, bypassing a whole step. And then that's going to really open up the casino, the stock market, instead of it being a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Well, now you got the big dogs here. Now it's going to be 7 days a week.
24/7, baby. Wow. It's going to get crazy in his house. Yeah, I like it. I like it.
And it really makes sense because you have all these institutional investors coming into crypto now. So, why not make it 24/7? Uh, combine the stock market with crypto and be able to fluctuate between the different assets, easily and spontaneously like that. It's going to be, it's going to be pretty amazing and incredible. Basically they're building the store. It's just not opened yet.
That's a real good analogy. Yeah.
Yep, great way to put
Yeah,
it.
really great way to put it. And I got to say, the idea that you could say, for instance, be invested in a Tesla, whatever stocks, and you could decide spontaneously to go, well, I'm going to liquidate, let's say 50% of that. I'm going to put some of that in some sort of crypto, right? And then at one point you're like, well, I don't know, this is my moment. I'm going to buy that house down at T Street. Yeah, baby, yeah. I'm just saying, like the ability to have I like the term liquidity is said a lot on this show and in the whole reality of crypto, but just to have that kind of liquid movement where it actually is solid state and it's just all those worlds can, you know, come together like merging onto a freeway from the 5 to the 405. You know, it's just hit the ramp. I mean, it's not there yet, but they're building. I bet they're building the store, but they're also building the ramp to the store.
The developers realize that they need to simplify things and make it a little bit more user friendly. So, you have some wallets, there's a cold wallet called Tangem now that you don't even need to have your backup phrase. It's stored on like a credit card, and it just has a little machine, like a little slider box. I don't know that much about it. I was reading about it last night. If I'm going to bring it up, I probably should know more. But what I'm trying to say is it just makes it a lot more user friendly. You have like three cards, and there's a passcode, and you don't have to worry about losing your phrase, and I think what all this is going to just streamline your ability to be able to get it in and out of assets quickly, and it's going to be really interesting to see this progression that we're seeing with the real world asset.
And less problematically. Like we hear a lot of stories about, some problems people have putting it here, getting it out of here. Just, it's probably going to make a lot of potential investors a little hesitant. Okay. But in the middle of all that, I want to say, Jeff, I like your hat.
Thank you. Thank you. Like that. Such a good fit.
But yeah, just so anyone knows, we got hats and t-shirts, ladies and gentlemen, and stickers are coming too. Thank you very much. But anyway, what an awesome topic. And then I want to switch gears off of that over to Will. I know that you got, as always, some pretty cool stuff you want to talk about today, and I'm all ears.
I think it's funny, I have this thought in my head. I'm rolling with the crypto posse, right? That old school saying, rolling with the homies. And then as we're rolling, right, I see what Mike is saying, and I can see this building being built. And I'm like, damn, I know what that is. And then as I'm rolling with my friends, I realized that the majority of people don't even see that building. How early really are we? And how good of a feeling does it feel when you know that you were buying into this asset class before it became popular, before the BlackRock came in, which leads me into what I'm going to share today, which is, did you buy the dip? That's the question that I always pose to people around me because they're so quick to talk about the politics and they're so quick to talk about all these things. But at the end of the day, it's real simple for me. That just equals distraction. Are you distracted? Did you buy the dip? It's really that simple. Don't get distracted.
Like, did you get emotional by it, or did it affect you? Did their game win? Like you always have a theme, where you're kind of that. It's like that sticker, question authority. And I always feel like when I'm talking to Will and we're at the posse, Will's got that spirit, that question things, that let's really look at this for real. So I appreciate, keep going, mister, keep going.
Shit, I appreciate it too, man, because imagine being this way, growing up as a kid in school, and I'm curious. I want to speak curiously. I want to understand where people are coming from. I want to understand. Doesn't mean I'm going to agree, but I do genuinely want to understand the dynamic of just personal relationships, business relationships. And I love what you said. Emotion. People don't even know what that word means. Emotion is merely energy in motion. And that's the crazy part is, again, don't get distracted and don't let your emotion lead the way. Because I heard Jeff talk about earlier, the market pulled back, a lot of sellers got trapped, market ran in the opposite direction. And what do you think these people are going to do? They're going to sell their position. They're going to chase the price. And then what the price is going to do? It's going to reverse on them. And they're sort of constantly playing catch up. And if that's for you, hey, my hat's off to you. But the likelihood of being profitable while letting your emotions run the show, it just doesn't sound like a good match. Sounds like a toxic relationship.
I bet the fear and greed index saw a pretty crazy, turnaround in one day. We went from fear to greed in the matter of 24 hours. So, a lot of people got caught on the wrong end of it. And, I feel bad for people that fell to the fear and sold because, you know, literally like, I don't know, 5 hours later, you're going, what in the heck did I do? It's a tough one. Then you got to, figure, well, do I try to jump in and catch the end of this little rally, or how far is it going to go? It's just it's so crazy to try to predict, So again, like Will's saying, if you're buying the dips, you're looking good.
It makes a lot of sense, really, with anything. It's just what are those dips and what are those highs, and it's usually easy to see. It is a common theme I always talk about. It's easy to see in hindsight. It seems like we're always talking about it, but the truth is, how do we know? You just go by instinct, which hopefully isn't guided by emotion. I think there's going to be a little emotion. We're not robots. We're going to have feelings, but we're going to hope that our ability to discern numbers and data and real world information that's more mental than emotional, but it's always going to be infused with little emotion. Like I said, we're not AI robots.
But what you do want to do, and you brought it up earlier, Joseph, is don't get caught up in the middle. Like if price is in the middle right now, there's nothing in the chart that's telling me to hit the buy button or hit the sell button. There's just not, and that's the data. But that's me operating off of logic and then not really pushing, but setting my emotions off to the side. And then in logic, it's like, okay, well, whether there's a ceasefire or not, or whatever the news is going to do, that's irrelevant to what I'm going to do, what my plan is personally. So again, just don't get caught up in the middle. Like you said, we're not robots. I never expect that. But I love that word. It really resonates. It's that discern, right? If something bad happens, does that mean that you have to just jump right into a negative emotion?
Hell no.
Exactly.
Not just no, hell no.
Hell no. And what I do with that is I disconnect, I turn off the distraction, the TV, the cell phone, any of the electronics. And what's really helped me, and I would write this down. Go ground, go disconnect, go make good memories with your tribe, your family, your friends, and let all that other stuff play out. And that helps me not be emotional when these opportunities happen, but I'm the one who chose to look at it like that. I'm not letting these things dictate how I think and feel. I'm making the choice and saying, oh my gosh, this is an opportunity.
Yeah, you're in the driver's seat instead of them having them put you in the back seat. And I want to say those are the ultimate real world assets. What you just said: family, friends, get outside, take a walk, get out in the water, refresh, cleanse, don't let the media be too powerful in your life. Check in. I mean, don't be the guy that's completely anti, because that's another side of it, right? I feel like the goal is to create a really healthy balance and in our lives, get together with humans, your people, connect.
I love that, dude. The fact that you just related RWA to what's really important, fucking beautiful, man. Thank you.
What we're really doing it here on our show is really trying to bring the humanity, but really talk about crypto, but really remain aware. Like, okay, yeah, there's a seedlings of war, but let's not, come on, man. It can't just be about money and investments. It's got to be about, that's sad. We tap into that's terrible. That's a terrible part of the human condition, is that people bomb each other and kill each other's children. Like, I just don't get it. But as long as we remain connected to our heart, which is being emotional, and that part of emotion is beautiful, but then we don't necessarily invest with all that emotion. We have to start looking at graphs and numbers and look at, real world information and make a good decision, which is not easy. Hopefully, people come, enjoy what we're doing. And I know this. I enjoy hanging out with you guys every week and doing the show. So thanks for showing up again on Crypto Posse number 17 to my posse.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Later.
Yes, sir. Another great episode of Crypto Posse. A lot going down. Remember, comment, like, subscribe. Posse over and out.